This is my writing. I love using one sheet of paper. Wow, it's gonna be so hard for me to write a book. When I write a book, I guess I technically, what the fuck am I talking about when I write a book? I love Bill Maher. I love his show. I always find it entertaining, informative, in one sense or another, heartwarming, as much as it is tragic. But I do, you know, it's not about good or bad. He's one fucking genuine guy. I'll tell you that much. As fake as he is, he's got a show. But he on the show, what was it? Oh, Jay Z was a guest, and as a gesture of esteem to Jay Z, with sort of esteem. It's not really when you think about it, but it's nice. It was nice. He had a book. Bill Maher had a book printed of all the words of all the lyrics that Jay Z had ever sung, and he put it into a book that was basically like hardcover book, something along the lines of this, a smaller size, a little bit. That was oh, you know what? Really? Now that I think about it, it's like the size of a Bible. It was thicker than this. I'm sure the print was the words were bigger on the regular pages. It was hardcover and it had a bee, a Brooklyn bee embossed on it. So it was a nice, and he said these are all the words that you've ever sang. It was a thick book, and Jay Z was like, "Whoa!" He's like, "Did you realize that you've said that many words?" And he's like, "No, I never thought about it like that." So, on that context, I've written a book. Trust me. Is it a coherent book? I don't know. I would like to think so. So maybe my goal that I set. I was about 19 years old when I made a determination that I was going to write a book at 40. Initially, the envision or the engraving in the back of my head, the story narration that I was going with, is that when you grow up in a bleak situation, you have a bleak outlook on life. So my vision was that, but shortness of life does not equate to a bleak existence. But interpreting that type of concept, I envisioned my life to only extend to 45-ish years old. And towards that vision that I had, that theme, that plot, I to kind of enshrine it in a sense, to solidify it or validate it or cope with it. Not to say that it's real or that it's not, it's just to cope with the idea in the head. You can't necessarily choose the ideas that are in your head because your brain is not subject to your whatever. That I was going to write a book at 40, be done by 45, and as a result, I just somehow interpret as a result of my writings, that would bring about my death. It wasn't going to be a health factor or disease type issue. But even if it was, it would be still like the South American heads of state that have gotten cancer, that are obviously, irrefutably, only the most mundane jackass would think that the American CIA or Mossad is not intricately entwined and immediately responsible for, yes, giving these, I think it's 5 or 6 heads of state that are all of lean to what would be an independent South American type infrastructure, get cancer, including Hugo Chavez is probably the most popular one that died. And the catch is the way you know the cancer. Hugo Chavez was going to Cuba to get cancer treatment. But this is the significance when you're dealing with cancers on how the CIA uses them to kill. Cancer's curable. Radiation poisoning that leads to cancer is not curable in any way, shape, or form. Your motherfucking ass is gonna die. Painfully. at a per second rate of disintegration, as the actual term goes in physics. That is radiation poisoning on a molecular level. So, but I have written a book, and it's just compounding. So now I'm writing my book in one sense now, a page at a time. If I keep this up, even though I do was it 2 days ago, I had a one-liner to he who waits for anyone that waits for justice harbors corruption. All right, so even with days where I have something like that, which is not really lazy because it's a page worth of information in a sentence, or a book's worth, a life's worth, for what that's worth. I'm gonna have pretty significant shit, especially since I'm doing it hand and I'm making it a point to convert it over to digital. That's part of this exercise. So I guess I'm writing the book already. So this is for today. Let me read this first because I already talked enough. Time flies, 6 minutes in. This is the Bible and Fascism. And I'm doing this while telemarketing. I think that actually is very critical for the thought process. The profound obstacle I face is that fascism has been manufactured into a period of history that is echoed to be done. Likewise, the modern media and education system, not plural, has transformed the religious fervor that fuels fascism into a paganisque, anti-religion, God-hating, trendy cult. Therefore, I am left looking like painted to be, or am found guilty by a jury of my peers to be trying to insinuate something everyone else knows is a flat-out lie. Now, whether this is to preserve the value of the Bible or conceal the truth about fascism, all roads lead to Hollywood. To summarize, what I am convinced fascism seems far-fetched, but that just means I contradict Harvard, Yale, West Point, Oxford, Cambridge, Duke, Columbia, and I am okay with that. Fascism is a social order first established in writing through Plato's The Republic. From this template, a process of expansion, contamination, or absorption ensued. As fascism shares its roots with fascination, it presents itself as a goal-oriented means of organization, synonymous with innovative or progressive. Behind the veil of a well-mannered, civilized, goal-oriented, ambitious facade is a target or a prey. The key to fascism is not in its professed objectives, but in its human effect and environmental externalities. The rest is just peacock feathers and a stoat dances. It is in this awareness that the bonds between fascists and Bibleites, not at all exclusive, become as real as the history they unfold through. Drawing from the above-mentioned educational institution's narrative, there is no dispute as to the scale of human catastrophe in the last 3,000 years. And if one follows the bouncing ball, the closer it gets to now, or your home, the higher the toll on human life it takes to sustain. This history itself celebrates these progressive patterns as positive, which in fascism is interchangeable with productive and profitable. So, in fascism, so the birth of a nation and the destiny it professes is directly related to the amount of human blood it is baptized in. Thus, the greatest are undisputably the greatest. Enter the Bible. While the whole of the writing is cherished by billions, without it, the greatest nations of our modern civilized world would be considered quite a different status. Take the example of the United States of America. Remove the emotional influence of self-association with the Bible, any sect so derived. And will the same people think the same thing about the USA and what it actually did and invidiously does? It's just a facet of the way fascism works on the human brain. To give two general examples, the modern descendants of Spanish origin still holds the conquistadors as national heroes, not regardless of what this small gang of men did to human beings, but only because they did what they did, and it was something that no normal human being would ever do. Second, the modern Australian, which is one of fascism's greatest accomplishments and stands to give wonderful insight into this goal-orientated force. The mystery is that there never was, nor will there ever be, Australians. No matter how desperate the Celtic people are to hide from what they represent in humanity, they will never be Australian. As my page wanes thin and my thoughts get consolidated, I am compelled to cut to the chase, or the goal. While people that rely on the Bible think of it as the sun to the solar system, it is more like the sun to this quadrant of the known cosmos. The space upon which, or within, the sun and all this stuff is set is fascism in this analogy. That is to say, that it is not that fascism relies on the Bible to garner influence, but that the Bible relies on Roman imperial fascism to be relevant. Thus, the message of the Bible is that of imperialism. It functions to turn Semite against Semite, Indian against Indian, Celt against Celt, and as disclosed by Matthew 10:35, family member against family member. It is only in this type of world that Roman imperial fascism can thrive and achieve its goals. As such, the gravity of the Bible just makes it look like order, or that it makes sense in a context. Outside that small box or slave ship, it is pure anarchy and chaos. The strong devouring the weak, the big controlling the small, the rich exploiting the poor, the righteous killing the pagan. Fascism has but one message, the din of it all. Destroy the weak and save the strong. To be worded however you need to say it to mean it. So, on another footnote, I had a bicycle that was stolen from a job site. That they cut the chain, went inside the grounds, cut the chain, and removed the bike. Now, the crazy thing about this situation is that obviously I have great critiques about the employers. I still stand with that shit too. Um, the crazy shit is that I might be put in a situation, and I'm already trying to debate. I wrote another one of these things that I haven't put up called the Solar Swastika, and it's actually I'm editing it. It's a work in progress that's going to turn into a new form of presentation that's an attempt instead of pushing to embrace. So it's very hard for me to construct I don't like this is not it could be embracive, but it's still repulsive. It's still repelling a lot. It's still focusing on how to create distance and separation. You know, fascism is binding rods. So this is my focal point, my obsession, my fascism is on tearing the rods apart, um, which could create more destruction than allowing the rods to stay. This is the way fascism works in this paranoia. What would it be without it? It would be life. But in this context of the bike being stolen, a few weird things. So there's cameras on the property. One of the low-level managers, it's not really a manager, administrative assistants that is allowed the appearance of a manager, but not the perks. And that has to do with my pet peeve with the employer in the first place. The virulent, I don't know, virulent, I don't know how to say that shit, abhorrent, outright, fucking disgusting racism that is perpetrated throughout the solar industry in California from Israeli born Jews or Israeli self identified individuals who immigrate over here for the sole purpose of making money outside of Israel off of the population on which they're in, with no relevant concern, care, or regard for the dignity of the people that they're basically pharaonic Jews in one sense. Psychology. That is not to say they're not human. They're human beings trapped in a psychological state. That they have been drowned basically like in a bathtub since they were infants. Compounded on their military service and what actually goes on in military training, that they have little hope of ever being anything different. So that's why I have to figure out how to do something more embracive, because it's easy to repel such disgusting, vile behavior because that's a natural instinct. But I'll say like this: if you got somebody dying, a homeless person dying on the street, just theoretically, and they smell like fucking shit, but you know they're fucking dying right there on the street. You know they're gonna die of this kind of shit. There are only two types of human in that situation. This is not the fucking robber on the road to Jericho Bible story. All the stories in the Bible talk about fascism, okay? But this has to do with would do you want to be the type of human that if you see somebody in that muck or mire, or maybe they're not even dying, maybe they're just a fucking crazy ass nut job, some psycho bitch on a bus stop, or some fucking whacked out fucking crazy fool on the fucking sidewalk. If they were to engage you in a conversation, could you embrace them? And if they stank like shit, was standing within 3 feet of them, could you manifest such an internal drive to exhibit, like they call the Buddha, when the Buddha is being enlightened, He's like this. The same thing as the Jesus becoming Christ. Like the devil tricks him or tempts him 3 times. Well, before the Buddha became the Buddha, Mara, the devil, does the same 3 basic temptations. Which it's an example of what you psychological phases in the decision-making process of identity. How do you form who you are as an identity? You have to face these temptations in order to manufacture an identity. If you do not go through this phase and you do not manufacture an identity, you will be subjected to fascism against your will, even though you make choices throughout your entire life. So, but when the Buddha was tempted at one point, it might have been at the very last point, the sign of victory. Did Jesus get behind me, Satan, casting Satan away, that kind of moment? Well, that equivalent in the Buddhist pantheon is where the Buddha's sitting there in the lotus position underneath the Bodhi tree. The devil's tempting him. And at one of the temptations, it could be the last one, the Buddha reached down, 2 fingers, it might have been his left hand, but I'm just going to do my right hand, my dexter. Dexter means right in Latin. Touched the ground, and that symbolizes the immovable spot. Do you have the capacity inside of your being, in the entity that you determine to be who you are and the type of person you're capable of being, as you perceive it to be produced from your parents? Could you go above and beyond your capacity to extend a mere worthless, irrelevant gesture to somebody that is going to die a horrible fucking death? Period. There's no happy ending. The homeless motherfucker, whether you talk to him or not, put up with his smell, or the bitch, the crazy bitch, maybe she's fucking talking, just needs a response. I hear you. Whatever it is, I hear you. No, you don't hear me. Okay, if I don't hear you, I'll try. Sometimes I don't understand things, but I'll try. If that kind of a gesture, the motherfucking person will still die a horrible fucking death. They'll still die homeless. This is the reality of the world we live in. We live in such a fucked up society that's most kids that growing up in a home with people that are associated with fascism, despite their parents' well-mannered facade of order and some bullshit, the facade of order is a cover for that chaos. The chaos is the child's experience of trying to do what a human child comes into this world to do. Establish an identity. Free of the influence, of disgusting shit. I guess I have to close. I did cite a Bible verse, and that kind to be, the entire essay was written around that Bible verse. Oh, but my bike was stolen, and it looks like it's a very slim possibility. It will be a surprise, and it's going to, in one sense, break me. And I don't know how it's going to break me, buy me off in one sense. But, they might end up buying me a bike to replace. I don't know how that's going to work. That'll fuck with my head. Big time. And it's not something to be bought off easy, because obviously the money that they're not paying, the fair wages that they're not paying people, is going to be the money they use to get the bike. So this is where a fucking crazy ass dilemma comes into, if they even buy the bike. The mid-level management person thinks apparently that's what they're going to do. And it's based on the logic that for basically 9-10 months, I've pretty much showed up to work all the time on time. And I've been on my bike the entire time. They look at the fact that even when I'm not producing, I help other people produce above and beyond my means. And I feed people that I don't have to, for healthy food. I cook for people And I bring food just for the people. So this apparently is part of the calculations. But if they do, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a very powerful, something that I have to reconcile. And this is why identity is important. And this is why the process of making choices, making the immovable spot does not mean I don't give a fuck if you give me some kind of gesture, whatever it is. I'm going to stick to my grounds. No, no. The immovable spot is I'm not going to let me prevent gratitude from being expressed. Because gratitude, and I stole this from Buddhism, so anyways, the Bible verse, Matthew 10:35. I'm going to actually do 10:35 and 10:36. Oh, and 37 now. Oh, 34 too. 34 to 37. 10:34, 37. Matthew. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. That sword from the Freemasons, same fucking sword. Any type, Samurai Jack's sword, He-Man's sword, fucking what's the flaming sword at the Garden of Eden, the sword of the Spirit. I think there's the fucking sword in Islam too. Excalibur. Yada yada yada. You could probably think of your own shit. Fucking sword. If you don't know what the fucking sword means, you think it has something to do with the fucking all the other words involved in it. It's a greater symbol. Joseph Campbell cites a German guy that created the popular, not popular, but the basic term to categorize this shit as elementary ideas. The concept of the sword, which most people affiliate with the word, is a distraction from the actual function of the imagery of the sword. Anyways. So, but a sword. So he brought a sword. For I am come to set man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's foes shall be they of his own household. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Here's a final note just to show you how I study the Bible. So these are my notes. So I don't know if you can read them, but it's fascism, empire, patriotism, passive aggressive, conformity, normalization, dronification, Western civilization. That's the gist of it. So I guess on a final note, anti-fascist. If you want to be anti-fascist, you have to associate with Rastafarians, Sikh people, adopt native, indigenous, tribal, not necessarily convert all the way to their religions, but adopt them as a central guide for philosophy, whatever the fuck you want to call it. The blues, not gospel. Gospel is fascism. The blues. And I'm sure there's more stuff, but that's off the top of my head. The extent of what I can do. Okay, thank you very much.